Well, hey everyone. Today for our live stream, we have RTIP alum and the man that runs the show at Canterbury Park, Andrew Offerman. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
Yeah. And then we have two students. Normally, Eric DeCoster has normally done that, but we had a little party for our students today, and we have a surprise extra student today, Haley Schiffer, joining Eric DeCoster. Hey, Haley.
Awesome.
So just so you know, Andrew, Eric did his internship in the racing office at NYRA.
Awesome.
Pretty
share
cool.
That in common.
You share, yeah. So what did you do? Talk about your internship while we're on that subject.
Yeah. So when I was at the U of A, I had the fortune of interning at NYRA for the summer. It was a little bit different. I was spread across multiple different operating departments. So I got to experience time in ticket sales and reserve seating and marketing, mutuals, some of the operational departments, as well as get to spend a Saratoga meet in the racing office, working on hustling races and filling stakes and going through that whole process. So really cool experience. I'm sure Eric, you felt the same way. Pretty awesome place to get a chance to experience that and get to meet a whole bunch of amazing people and then amazing horses.
Yeah, 100%. I had a very similar experience being at Belmont and Saratoga. I stayed in the racing department. Racing office needed the help in there as much as they could. So I was happy to do that, but enjoyed every second of it. And then obviously seeing the different roles that were going on, spending a lot of time in the paddock, helping out the paddock judge especially. So it was great. It was exceptional.
And then Haley's the assistant GM at Arizona Downs. So she assists Mike Weiss, who runs the show there. They have 4 more days of live racing, I believe, up in Prescott. And so tell us, Haley, kind of what you've experienced up there.
So my main job for those who really come to the track is I do the on-air handicapping. So I'm like the TV with surprisingly enough, Arizona State intern named Jacob. So we constantly have this whole like U of A versus ASU thing going on. But then, I help Mike Weiss out on the side with like things that need to be done internally. And I also enjoy my hobby of taking pictures. So while the races are being run.
Very cool. Hopefully we could be a little more proud of our Wildcat football team this year. We've gotten off to a 1-0 start. So I think now that makes us 24 losses for the last 26 games, something like that. But hopefully this is the start of big things. So we're excited. I know Eric's going to the football game tomorrow night. I'm going next week. So there's some love for the team again this year with the first road victory. So that's pretty cool. Well, you have a big weekend coming up, Eric, with Andrew. It's on Saturday night racing. Could you talk about what's happening at Canterbury?
Sure. We've got Minnesota Festival of Champions this week, which is kind of our state bred featured day, similar to Maryland Millions and Sunshine Millions. So all Minnesota breds putting it on the line for kind of the divisional championships of racing this summer. A unique event that started back here in 1992 when our current owners kind of put on one last day of racing before the racetrack actually closed here based on some political tensions that happened. So it's kind of a celebration of the rebirth of racing here in Minnesota, something that we take a lot of pride in, and really a great race card this year. Over the years, as breeding has kind of ebbed and flowed, the day has kind of been of varying quality, but this year I think it's easily the best group of Minnesota breds as far as their ability. And there's also a lot of competitive races without really a standout performer. So I think it'll be a great day to celebrate the best of Minnesota bred racing and look forward to some good races over the course of Saturday evening.
So one horse that I remember from the recent past, I believe he's retired now, is Mr. Jägermeister, right? Kind of that's the Minnesota bred that
Yep.
I've known. Maybe you could tell his story a little bit,
For sure, yeah. Mr. Jägermeister, definitely maybe the fastest Minnesota bred in recent memory, excelled sprinting and really, took the show on the road, battling lot of really good horses, including Whitmore and some of the, really the country's best sprinters. When he ran in Oaklawn over the past couple of years, we actually got to host kind of a retirement ceremony for him a couple of weeks ago. He led the post parade for the Minnesota Derby, which he had won 4 or 5 years ago, and looked awesome doing it. So he retired as one of the winningest Minnesota breds of all time. Still has been kind of hanging out of the track, teaching some of Valerie Lund's horses the ropes. But an awesome horse that we were, had the pleasure of being able to watch up here for 4 or 5 seasons, and really kind of changed, I think, people's perception of the Minnesota program when he saw, who he was able to go out there and compete with. He wasn't just a Minnesota bred; he was a really good sprinter that could compete, in the better races across the country. So awesome to have a chance to see him over the past 4 or 5 years, and excited that some of his siblings are continuing to live up to some of his ability here in Minnesota.
Very, very cool. So is he like the fan favorite? Like, each racetrack kind of has the one horse, kind of the hard knocker, the hard trier, kind of the people's horse. Did he become that horse for you guys?
He did. He kind of was maybe a 3-year span or so where he was definitely kind of the it horse when he was entered. People showed up to run, and he had, at least for a couple of seasons, was at a level where nobody really wanted to run against him. So every time that he ran, it was more or less a sure thing. But he definitely got people excited, and he actually came onto the scene as a 2-year-old. I can't remember exactly what he won his debut by, but it was a massive amount, maybe 18 lengths or so. And that particular year, Mac Robertson had a wonderful 2-year-old filly that ended up going on to run in graded stakes races, and the two of them paired up in a 2-year-old race at the end of the meet. Amy's Challenge was her name, and they went down the stretch and were about 25 lengths clear of the rest. So that was a really cool race that kind of stands out in my memory. And both of those horses were really fan favorites over the 2 or 3 years that they kind of came back to run in Minnesota. So pretty cool little time span there with 2 of the best 2-year-olds, at least, that debuted in Canterbury history, kind of doing so in the same year, and then having a chance to kind of settle that battle on the racetrack, which is cool.
Very cool. So Eric is kind of like our man around campus that knows everything about the history of horse racing. Eric, do you have any Minnesota stories or things you want to share about Minnesota racing? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm sure somewhere in your encyclopedic brain that there's some facts in there that you may want to share.
That's you are putting me on the spot. No, but Minnesota racing is interesting to me because I'm originally from Iowa. Prairie Meadows still my home track in my heart. So Canterbury, I've never been, unfortunately, but it's very similar in my mind. So you appreciate the quality of racing. But we've already touched on the 2 Minnesota breds that I've always or Minnesota bred and Amy's Challenge. I mean, they were some of my favorite horses to watch, and I remember getting geared up because Amy's Challenge and Mr. Jägermeister had both broken their maidens so impressively, and then they both showed up to face off in that race, and they threw it down for 6 furlongs, if I remember correctly. But no matter the distance, those are definitely what stick out the most to me. And there's a solid Phoenix connection to Canterbury with Turf Paradise. So even I remember Valerie Lund's absolutely cool winning the first ever Phoenix Gold Cup I went to. He was a pretty cool sprinter. And you get a lot of those types of horses that'll show up down in these parts in the winter. So those are my biggest memories when it comes to horse racing in Minnesota.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So one thing I had read about is this engagement project you guys do in Minnesota, and it's something we touch on in one of my classes. Can you kind of talk about what's that's turned into? Is it a model for other states? I think people listening would be interested to hear more about that. Yeah,
sure. Kind of just going back a little bit into Canterbury's history, we've kind of been known throughout the industry as an innovator and a facility that still draws, substantial live crowds. Pre-COVID, our average attendance was, in the mid 6,000s over the course of a 65-day meet. This year, kind of coming out of COVID, we're back close to that number again. So we continue to kind of drive a really interested and excited live attendance. And I think that can contribute a lot of different things to the industry. One of the things that, we've had a lot of effort to try to innovate in the area of his racehorse ownership. We actually kind of created the first racehorse ownership club concept maybe 12 or 14 years ago, when Jeff Madej, who works for us in media relations and fan relations, kind of came up with this idea to get 75 people involved in a horse at a really low price and kind of show them about racehorse ownership through video and blogging. And that's this racehorse engagement project that's led by Joe Skirdo is really kind of an extension of what that program started. It's a way to try to connect with people about the thoroughbred, about the quarter horse, what horses can do as far as ownership is concerned, how you can get people involved in the game from an ownership perspective. And then, kind of on the opposite side of that, what you can do as far as racehorse retirement, aftercare, how to engage the public kind of in that part of the business. So it's really kind of a twofold approach at looking at, racehorse ownership, both through the process of kind of owning a horse when it's on the track, and then also, what horses can do after they're done racing. So Joe's done a great job with that program, really kind of getting involved in a lot of different aspects of the industry and kind of making that story well known. He's really worked hard with Wasabi Racing to kind of blow up the idea of the racehorse club. So where that started at about 70 or so members, I think this year there were just under 400 people that were involved in that. We really kind of took it outside of just the local area, but tried to make that available across the country so people could follow along with our product. And it's really just an opportunity to try to take some of the fandom that we've created, some of the following that we've had, and convert those people into whatever the next step of their interest in the sport might be. Similarly, we do kind of handicapping classes and seminars over the course of the winter that are kind of multi-week events to teach people more about handicapping. So we've got a lot of different tracks just to try to get the general public that might be interested in coming out a few times this summer a little bit more deeply involved in the sport, whether that be through betting, racehorse ownership, aftercare, or any other avenue that might be of their interest.
So what do you attribute the 6,000 number to? Is it marketing? Is it, how do you get those folks? And kind of a follow-up to that, how does night racing compare to day racing? Is it the same crowd? Maybe you could talk a little bit about the difference, because you're one of the unique tracks that does both, right?
Sure. Yeah. Kind of a lot to unpack there, but our original kind of genesis of when the track closed here in the 90s, like I spoke to earlier, it was really a lot similar to what everybody else was doing at the time. It was really designed to the hardcore gambler. And when our current ownership group bought the racetrack and then eventually took it public, the focus was really on trying to make it an entertainment destination, not just a racetrack. So that really changed kind of what our marketing initiatives were, where we invested some of our resources. Obviously, that kind of led to a lot of promotions that people are probably similar to at other racetracks like dog races and extreme race days. But it's really been a focus on trying to be a good member of the community. We're in one of the fastest growing suburbs in the whole metro area. So we really focused on trying to be, a resource for those that want to go out and have a good time outdoors somewhere during the course of the summer, and really try to cater to a lot of different audiences, whether it be via live music or happy hour specials, or those types of things. And it was really a calculated long-term investment in the product that led to that attendance growth. That really, was about a 20-year venture or so that grew our crowds from, when Thursday racing started back in the mid 90s under this ownership group, we drew 1,500 people. And in 2019, our Thursdays averaged over 7,200 people.
Wow.
So it was a long-term investment that, really kind of focused on growing the brand and being seen as an entertainment destination, not just a gaming venue. And then, to kind of follow up on that, COVID changed our whole business model, obviously, because without the ability to really drive any on-track business, we had to pivot and look at off-track models and try to figure out how to increase our handle, which led to, playing around with different days of racing, because pre-COVID, we were a Thursday, Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday afternoon, kind of traditional racetrack model. Throughout COVID, we started playing with more and more weekday racing, played with our post times a little bit to try to fit the niche in between kind of East Coast afternoon big tracks and some of the traditional evening tracks. And then doing that, have kind of built this new hybrid model of Wednesday and Thursday, kind of mid to late afternoon, Saturday evening, which has really played well to bringing a lot of our on-track crowd back. That day is actually performed better than any other day right now from an on-track perspective. And then Sundays, we still focus on some of the more family-driven, entertainment-based activities. So it's kind of a unique combination, but we've made it work. And really, it's changed kind of our whole business model related to what we've been able to do from a handle perspective, and how we've been able to kind of keep that hybrid model of focused on fans, but also trying to cater to the wagering public.
Cool. Eric, Haley, do you have any questions for Andrew?
Yeah, I think my biggest one is Canterbury doesn't run the entire year, and it's not like there's necessarily a track that's physically close to feed you horses. So can you kind of touch on that process of, because you obviously have the people that return each and every year, but just making sure they're coming back, maybe scouting out new horses and just keeping that machine rolling each and every year so it can be field sizes are strong and keep the betting public happy.
Yeah, good question. We as you know, really don't line up in a true circuit really with any other facility. So we are out drawing horses from Arizona primarily, but also Florida, Texas, New Mexico, New Orleans. So there's a lot of time invested in the off season, whether it be by myself or our racing office team who work at a lot of those same facilities to go out and recruit people. And, that's been an investment that's really gone back to even before when I was in this role. When Eric Hallstrom was here, he was out traveling to all of those places, trying to keep those connections, maintain those relationships. And it's really a lot of, time and putting your foot on the ground and walking from barn to barn throughout stable areas, getting to know people, understanding what some of the things are that, they appreciate about the facility or some of the things that they need some help with. And we've done a lot to try to make, that commute less painful for people. We know that you're going to pass a lot of facilities. If you drive from Florida or Arizona to get to Minnesota, you're going to pass up an opportunity to stop 5 or 6 times somewhere else. So we've tried to do a lot, and our HBPA has been very supportive of doing a lot with unique incentive programs and shipping offsets to try to help people, weather that financial storm that might come with the transportation. And then when we get up here, we do our best to make sure they have a good time, make sure that we take care of them, find them housing, take care of their team members, and make sure that they have a good experience so they want to come back each year. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that, and have had some very loyal people that, based on the quality of their stables, probably could go be competitive in other jurisdictions, but like being here and have had success here and keep coming back year after year.
Yeah, and then another question of mine is kind of in my mind the biggest day of the year at Canterbury, Mystic Lake Mile, and the host of stakes at a company that I know it's on a Wednesday night, and you've spoken on the weekday racing, but have you seen that be very successful in terms of off-track, intake performance, and obviously the quality of horses and the quality of riders I know coming in is pretty strong, but what are some of the positives, and have there been any negatives too, having that on the kind of a unique night?
Yeah, good question. That was, again, kind of a reality of trying to continue to host that event, but do it through COVID. Kind of forced us to try to run that type of a schedule. The pros have been obviously financially from a handle perspective. We've killed it. We've had our 2 best days in our facility's history, and that includes the 8 times that we hosted Claiming Crown over the past 15 years. So we've had fantastic days from a handle perspective. This year in particular, I think it's the best group of horses that ever set foot on property, somewhat as a result of Churchill's challenges with their turf course. But the group that was here was fantastic. We got to expose the facility to a lot of owners and trainers that never would have been here before. And I think that having it on a Wednesday, an off day, if you will, was actually really helpful in getting people a chance to come up here because they didn't have horses entered in other places. It got us some big name riders that weren't committed, in other parts of the country. I think that type of a schedule can really actually lead to smaller tracks having an opportunity to make more out of their marquee day. Obviously, kind of the drawback for us is that a Wednesday night at 5 o'clock is not going to be the most convenient for our local fans to get here. So it isn't, the diehards still make it. They still come out. We still had a decent attendance. We still had a very good on-track handle, but it doesn't have the same opportunity to expose the casual fan as you might have on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon. So that's the drawback. But I think that when you weigh the pros and cons and the benefit that kind of exposing Canterbury to the national audience has had over the past few years, moving that event to Wednesdays and really showing people what Canterbury's product looked like, showing them that we have a turf course, that we've got good turf racing throughout the middle of the week, throughout a time slot that's a little bit more empty, has helped us overall generate handle out of our product. So I think by and large, the pros have outweighed the cons for us.
Great. So one of the things we really emphasize here, as you know, Andrew, at the Racetrack Industry Program are hands-on opportunities. So we talked about the internships that you did. I did my internship at NYRA as well, way back in the dinosaur era. But the other thing we do is field trips. That's really important, is to get boots on the ground, going to racetrack. So we're going to be taking a number of students to the Quarter Horse Challenge Championships at Mr. Hallstrom's facility at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. So we're really excited to get out there to see, the best quarter horses run. Maybe can you talk a little bit about your relationship with that event and any horses that may run at your facility that would then go down there?
Yeah, absolutely. We've hosted regional races, regional qualifying races for the AQHA Challenge Championships for the past 4 or 5 years. Been fortunate to have, I believe, 4 eventual winners of the championship qualify here. I think it's 4 of the last 5 or 4 of the last 6 have actually qualified through Minnesota, which is pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Including Danger, who's the reigning horse of the year and likely to be the prohibitive favorite again this year in that race. On the filly and mare division, Linder 16's qualified here the last couple of years. She's been a champion aged mare. So we've been really fortunate to see some of the best quarter horses in the country come through that program. And kind of give an opportunity, in a different part of the country for fans to get exposed to some of the best quarter horses, throughout the country. It's not normally what people would necessarily think of quarter horse country per se, but we've had a strong quarter horse industry here that's really been in existence since the early days that the facility was opened in the 1980s. So happy to continue to send horses to the challenge, and excited that it gets to go to a new venue this year over in Indiana, which I think probably plays well for some of the Midwest horses who get the benefit of shipping a lot less distance than they maybe have in the past.
Very cool. Will we see you down at Horseshoe, or are you going to come down for the event?
Hope so. I love to get to that event and support our qualifiers when I get the opportunity to. Well,
you'll have to have lunch or dinner with the students, and we always welcome alumni. We have such a vast network of folks, and that's another one of the advantages of our program is just how many people want to help our students. So whether it's Eric, helping out with the students, you being on this live stream, coming to symposium, speaking at symposium, we had Todd Pletcher hosted our students at his training center. That network, maybe you could speak a little bit to that network and maybe how it's helped you.
Yeah, easily for me, the most powerful part of the RTIP was the network that it created, and the fact that you really were able to establish a vast network incredibly quickly. I left with 2 years of school at the time, a degree, and 10 or 15 contacts that, through hard work and through some of my own networking easily turned into 100. And you really have an opportunity to figure out, who the key person is that can help you answer a question with 1 or 2 phone calls. And that really just doesn't exist in other industries. And for me, at least, it was incredibly helpful and instrumental to my career path. And I think it's one of the best things that the RTIP can do for you. You immediately kind of get access to people that know a lot about the game, have a lot of experience, and are always willing to pick up the phone and talk to people.
Eric and Haley, maybe you could talk about your connections that you made and how that led to opportunities for you already as students.
Yeah, doing the REITO internship. This is something that I don't think I've even told Robert, being in like the Rito internship led me to meeting Mike Weiss, which led me to Arizona Downs, and then meeting some people at Arizona Downs. I've already been offered a couple jobs when I graduate in December. And so, just meeting those people at the track that you wouldn't expect to meet is like really cool. And then being at symposium and meeting all those different people and people who are in the part of the industry you want to get into. Like, I'm really looking forward to symposium this year because I want to do rehab and rehoming, and I think Robert said we have a panel possibly on it, and so getting able to talk to those people is going to be really awesome for me.
Yeah, and it's been more of the same for me. My first summer interning in Saratoga, I was working for a trainer and an auction company, but through them I met Keith Doleshell, the racing secretary at NYRA. I mean, I've already told this story before, but point is, it just goes to show the connections you can make. And then this summer you meet so many different people, whether that's in the racing office and they're your coworkers, or on the backstretch, or people that work for the horsemen's organizations, or other organizations in horse racing. It's just been really cool through the RTIP really to meet these people who have then they want to help. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing in horse racing is it's really not necessarily surprising, but it's a cool thing to see how many people that are already established in the industry want to help new people get in the industry and want to help them get jobs. And I think especially when they've either gone through the RTIP or are well connected to the RTIP, I think that's even tenfold more so because they know that they were in that position once and they want to help too.
Yeah, I think you really hit on it, Eric. When they were students, they got the help and support. So now when they see other students, they want to kind of pay it forward and help the students as well. Well, we only have a couple of minutes left, and I'm going to hit kind of maybe on a tougher topic, but HISA. Maybe if you're willing to share, Andrew, how has that affected your world, kind of being a medium-sized track? Has it been revolutionary for you? You're still trying to figure it out. Maybe you can just give us a couple of minutes on what you think's going on. I'm sorry, I know it's a tougher question, but it's important. Right. I think people want to hear kind of what's happening in that world for what you're willing to speak to. I understand. Sure. If you can't talk in detail.
I think that, first and foremost, Minnesota, although it probably doesn't come to the top of people's minds, is incredibly heavily regulated, and I think one of the best regulated states for racing in the country. So I think we started from a lot different place than maybe a lot of other smaller mid-level tracks started from. So I think that the change maybe necessarily for my horse people and for my industry here has been less dramatic than maybe it has been for other places throughout the country.
Right.
That being said, racing is really a 365-day a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, living and breathing organism. And I think the thing that's been the hardest for everybody to cope with is that it's very difficult to change things on a quick timeline when there really is never a true stop to the action. And I think that's been the thing that's been the most difficult for people to get used to, is that there's just not a comfort level with kind of making drastic changes in such kind of quick time frames as maybe has been expected. Yeah. So I think that that's probably been the thing that's been the most challenging and the most disruptive to the day-to-day, facility or the day-to-day race meet. That said, I think that the community by and large has adjusted to the things that they've had to adjust to be able to keep things going. But I think that I think HISA showed it in the willingness to kind of create this horse persons panel that they've talked about, some additional collaboration and understanding of kind of how the day-to-day decisions work on the horse person side will go a long way, I think, to keeping or making the regulation better, more practical, and more effective in the long run. And I think that that's what's been successful here, quite honestly, kind of on a state-by-state level. And I think that that's probably what will go a long way towards making HISA, more palatable and maybe easier to implement moving forward as the industry kind of keeps going through these changes.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, right? The NFL season stops in February. They can decide what they want to do. They have time to figure it out. They implement the rules for the next season starting, in September, and it's implemented at once. I haven't heard many people talk about this challenge that you talk about of implementing while you're literally running, right? So that's a good point, but it sounds like you've gotten it done, and people are on board and trying their best to work with the organization.
Yeah, and we'll benefit from the fact that we're a seasonal venue and get the opportunity to close, go through a winter and reset. So I'm sure HISA will look a lot different next spring than it does right now, and I think that will help us be better prepared for it. But for the jurisdictions that run, throughout the year, it's a lot different challenge.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, we're at 2:30 already. The one negative thing about these live streams is they go fast. So I felt like we just got started, but we appreciate your time, Andrew, and all of your support.
Absolutely.
You represent the program amazing. You're a great person, and we appreciate everything you do for us and for our students. And hopefully we could all get together out in Indiana in October.
If not, I'm sure I will see you at Symposium.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank
Sounds
you for the
good.
opportunity, everybody.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Bye.
The Racetrack Industry Program has gained worldwide recognition for its annual Global Symposium on Racing, held in Tucson, Arizona, each December since 1974. The symposium attracts attendees representing horse racing and racino interests from all across the country and internationally. Topics presented during the symposium include issues and trends of importance to the parimutuel racing industry, such as simulcasting, account wagering, marketing, track safety, track operations, regulation, new technology, and thoroughbred aftercare. Symposium speakers and panel sessions represent a who's who of the racing industry, as well as outside experts. The broad cross-section of North American and international participants representing all parimutuel breeds makes the Global Symposium on Racing the largest racing industry conference in the world. For more information, visit www.racingsim.com.